all you cool naturalists and naturalistas. I'm Suzanne Simpson with Bayou Land Conservancy, and welcome back to Ask an Ecologist. We have some good questions that came in this week, and then we are going to talk about a very important topic, which is light. So let's begin with your questions. The first one comes from Laura Stoma, who asks, what are all these brown lizards all over my garden? Many of you are probably asking this question along with Laura, and it's a great one. The lizard that you're seeing, more than likely, is called a brown anole or a Cuban anole. And as its name implies, it is native to the Caribbean and Cuba and the subtropical areas. It is not native to the United States. But we're seeing it everywhere because brown anoles are able, in a lot of ways, to outcompete the green anoles that we're most familiar with here in the United States. And so brown anoles are exotic and considered to be an invasive species because of the impact that they have on the native green anole. Now, just a quick word, green anoles can also be brown. Brown anoles are distinguished because of this, ridged crest that they have on the back of their neck. Their brown pattern is a little bit different, a little bit more broken up, whereas green anoles are either going to be all green or all brown, and the brown that they are is generally a bit lighter than brown anoles. So that can be a little bit confusing sometimes. But there's interesting dynamics going on between green anoles and brown anoles since they have become sympatric, or species that are occupying the same territory and the same ecological niche. And so what scientists have found is that green anoles, in order to adapt to these new circumstances, have rapidly evolved their toe pads to where they're adapting a more arboreal lifestyle. So they're taking to the trees and to the thin branches that are really hard to cling on to, because the brown anoles tend to be so much more territorial of the ground than the green anoles. So this evolution is happening at a rapid pace. In 20 generations, the toe pad of a green anole has adapted significantly, and that's just 15 years. So over 15 years, the toe pads of a green anole have a significantly different shape to them than they did before. That's the equivalent of the male human height going from 5'9" to 6'4" over a really short span of time. So it's this incredible, strong selection that we're seeing for these different shapes of toe pads. But that's kind of it's good news for the green anole, because the brown anoles aren't going anywhere. They're more than likely going to continue to adapt to our conditions. And so when the green anoles are able to change how they're using their ecosystem more rapidly, that's actually a good thing for their long-term survival. For them to be able to persist long-term, they're going to have to learn to live with the brown anoles. So that's what you're seeing everywhere, more than likely. And good question. Thanks for submitting it. I've received several questions over the past few weeks. This one is from Reed Fryer about these bundles of red bugs that are hanging out on people's trees and sometimes on people's milkweed. And there are two types of milkweed bugs, and that's the technical term for them, is milkweed bugs, that we have here. We have the large milkweed bug and the small milkweed bug. So pretty easy to remember. I will pop some pictures of those two down in the comments below so that you can learn what they look like. But not only does their color set them apart whenever they come to visit one of your plants, but unlike most insects, these bugs are also gregarious, which means they hang out in groups whenever they're feeding. So you may see a large number of small red bugs, and that could be small milkweed bug larvae or nymph stages that are hanging out on your plant. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll be sure to pop some pictures in the comments below so you can learn to identify them. Our next question comes from Jill Bouillon, who asks, I have bird feeders in my yard and I've planted milkweed. Are any future caterpillars doomed? Good question, and the answer is no. Your future caterpillars are not doomed. Monarch caterpillars are able to sequester the chemicals from milkweed so that they become toxic to predators. And predators like birds catch on to this really quickly. So a bird that has had the experience of eating a monarch caterpillar is not likely to make the same mistake again. So chances are your monarch caterpillars in your garden are going to be spared. In fact, one study claimed that a bird that had eaten a monarch caterpillar saw another caterpillar afterwards and actually ended up vomiting on the site of the caterpillar. I'm not sure how they proved that, but that is a pretty strong reaction from one bad meal experience. It's kind of like having underdone Taco Bell or something like that. So don't fear for the lives of your caterpillars. I believe that your bird feeder and your milkweed can coexist peacefully in your backyard garden. Okay, we're going to move on to the main topic of discussion today, which is artificial light, full moons. How does light affect the dynamics of ecosystems? Light is a really, really important factor when it comes to predator-prey dynamics. And right now, we live in a world that is more light-soaked than any other time in human history. We also have a full moon coming up on May 7th, so the next episode of Ask an Ecologist will be on a full moon. So how does moonlight affect ecosystem dynamics? In its most basic terms, increased light means increased sight. So the more light that you have at night, the better that predators are going to be able to see their prey. But prey have caught on. For example, rattlesnakes are going to stay into their dens on full moons because they don't want to make themselves visible whenever they know that whenever predators can see them more easily. Many lions prides that have been studied don't even bother hunting during a full moon because they know that everybody's in for the night whenever there's that much light out. The big difference in ecosystem dynamics happens whenever new light is introduced to a previously dark place, and usually that comes from an anthropogenic source. Whenever that happens, it can offset the balance of the ecosystem because what species have previously adapted to has all of a sudden changed basically overnight, and now all of a sudden predators are having a huge advantage whenever they have artificial light. A good example of this is having lights on beach fronts where there's sea turtles that are nesting. And if those lights are staying on at night as sea turtles are hatching, that gives their predators, which literally anything that can put a sea turtle in its mouth, a hatchling sea turtle in its mouth, is going to be a predator to a sea turtle. That gives them a huge advantage. So there are sometimes laws or regulations that forbid lit beaches to protect the ability of sea turtles to get out into the ocean at night. And that way you can let nature take its course naturally. A lot of those sea turtles are still going to be preyed upon, but at least the balance isn't totally out of whack whenever that's happening. So light matters, and the dark sky movement has really taken hold in the past couple of decades to protect those spaces on Earth that are naturally dark and to keep them dark. And it's not just to benefit stargazing, but to benefit the natural balance of the ecosystem. So there are several places in Texas that you can go visit if you're interested in pursuing a dark sky. Big Bend National Park, also Big Bend Ranch State Park are certified dark sky areas. The Devil's River State Natural Area is dark sky certified. Davis Mountains State Park also has a great observatory, the McDonald Observatory. And let's see, what else have I got here? Oh, Enchanted Rock. Enchanted Rock was recently considered a dark sky site. So that's another one that you can hang out and visit. So if you're interested more in how the dynamics of light play out in interactions in your ecosystem, you can check out the Netflix series Night on Earth, which recently came out. It has great narration, it's really well done, and you're able to see some animal behavior after dark for the first time in recorded history. So pretty awesome. Thanks for hanging out at Ask an Ecologist, and I will see you next week, and I look forward to it. It's going to be a full moon, so it might get crazy. See you next time.